If there's one racing facility that has helped define American motorsports, it's the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. For the vast majority of its life, it was intimately connected to oval racing, however. Around the turn of the 21st century, that changed and road racing became a regular staple here. Today, our competitors will vie for the honor of having a win at the Brickyard as we get ready to watch the PCA Pro GT3 Cup Series, sponsored by Porsche. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth tonight is Michael Johnson. Cameron Aubernon is on social media, along with Ryan Bauer producing, who is using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Let's talk again about this new series in PCA Sim Racing because it's a bit different from our usual series and events. First off, there are two classes, PCA Pro and Pro. The difference being that the PCA Pro are drivers who have had to earn their way into tonight's racing by their solid performance in PCA Sim Racing Series 1 through 8. The top 10 in Series 8's points are the latest to join the ranks. Then, on the other side, the Pro drivers are just that. These are drivers who may have raced sim racing, but are also members of professional racing teams who are running the GT3 Cup 992 car in 2022. Teams include 311RS Motorsports, ACI Motorsports, Apoapsis Performance Solutions, Eagles Canyon Racing, Hardpoint Motorsports, and others that will be joining us later in the series. Now, if you aren't familiar with the road side of Indianapolis, we have our handy track guide to help introduce you. Welcome to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Though this track is by far more famous for its oval, which has been around for more than 100 years, road racing has become a regular feature thanks to the infield course built at the turn of the century. It has gone through multiple changes since then, but here on iRacing, there are two road layouts to choose from. Both clock in at just over 2.5 miles, with the moto version including 16 turns and the road version having 13. The bike circuit is far less used on iRacing with its more technical start to the lap, but still runs in the traditional counterclockwise direction. The road circuit, however, runs clockwise and presents a stark contrast between the twisty infield portion and the incredibly fast half that runs on the oval. Passing is often difficult here, but by far the most popular spot is under braking down into turn 1. From there, drivers are taken through a series of corners with little chance to rest between them. However, the exit of turn 11 often proves to be the most critical of the corners, with it leading you back onto the oval. Taking what is usually turn 1 in reverse, drivers build up incredible speeds. This tends to cause slipstream battles to erupt and can often make for close, exciting finishes. Formula One, IMSA, and MotoGP have all taken to the track, but currently IndyCar has become the biggest event the road circuit sees all year. Preceding the traditional practice and qualifying weeks leading to the Indianapolis 500, the Grand Prix of Indy has become one of the more desirable victories to claim. While there is still a proportionally small amount of history built on this version of Indianapolis, it's quickly becoming both a popular and well-used portion of this famous racetrack. Well, Michael, it hasn't had as nearly long a history as the oval itself, but in the short 20-some years that it's been around, this road course has actually gone through quite a few changes.
Indeed it has, and interesting changes. It seems like they're always trying to make the course a little more exciting, and you would think getting rid of a horseshoe in a couple of turns would make it less exciting. Far from the case. There's a beautiful run to be had. If you really set up turn 4 right, you can almost straight line going through 5, 6 and have a beautiful drag race down to 7, which turns into who's the king of the late breakers going in there. Then it's a little tricky, a little back and forth. It'll be parts that people recognize from other versions, or earlier versions, I should say, of this road course. But then the speed comes on just in time to get halted to go into turn 12 and hook that car back around. And then we've got, once again, that long drag race down to turn 1. I think we're going to see a lot of action in these 2.6 miles and 14 turns, right over 4 kilometers, about 4.2. It's going to be a ton of action, a lot of passing opportunities, a lot of drafting opportunities. So I expect a very exciting race today.
Yeah, it should put on a good show. Tends to offer up good opportunities, especially in this newer layout. Was just only released about a month ago on iRacing. For a long time, we had the old version, as we heard Michael mention, that was a little bit more twistier in some places and faster in others. But what they've added here not only looks very good, but makes the racing even better. And I got to think that racing here is going to be important to a lot of drivers, because I mentioned it in terms of tracks that are very meaningful in American motorsports. Michael, I got to think that a win here is going to be special.
It's always special, especially if you're severely lactose intolerant or allergic to dairy, like I am, because they bring out the milk, and I'll do the almond milk. I can't do that cow's milk stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I feel you on that. At my older age, I can't quite down that like I used to as a kid. But right now, watching the 913 out there on track along the backstretch and heading towards the braking into turn 8. This will be another spot that offers opportunities to try and pass. We'll see if anybody can get enough of a run to try and do that. A little bit more difficult than that first corner. And then here they'll swing it back onto the oval, at least briefly, before they have to head into another short little twisty section and then take it onto the front stretch.
This is a little tricky section right here. If you look on the left side, you can see there are those brake markers on that left side. If you're hot in a battle with somebody, they are very easy to miss, and there are zero other clues until you get up to that line that crosses across the track to let you know you were supposed to turn right back there, and you just missed it. I won't tell you how many times I did that when I was practicing this earlier just to get a feel, but it was a lot.
Yeah, got to pay attention, got to know the track, and the drivers that knew the track very well in the first race, because this is the second one of the evening for clarification. Christopher Pies managed to win the pro class, and then Drawhorn had put himself at the top spot in the PCA pro class. So Trey Drawhorn doing quite well for his team. Not as many cars as we've seen in some of the races so far this season, but still should put on a pretty good show as Eisenring comes around looking for those brake markers into turn 1. Let's hope we get a clean go into that first corner. This turn, and IndyCars kind of showed this a lot, Michael. It tends to cause some problems sometimes.
Well, since the redesign of the road course here, that turn has become a lot slower. There is a big change in the angle of that curbing coming in. You used to be able to run pretty hot in there and trail brake almost all the way into, well, actually all the way into turn 2. But now you can't do that. You really have to treat them as two separate entities. You get into turn 1, and then you've got a little spurt of gas to get up there into turn 2 to come back around. It's kind of tough, especially if you drove years and years and years on the other version.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we said, hasn't been quite as much time for the drivers to practice in this newer version. So we'll see who's put in the time to try and get used to some of the idiosyncrasies of this place. We should be going to a grid here in a little bit, but we got a time for the rest of them to try and practice up. Jacob Schum in the 56, currently heading through that 1-2 sequence and into 3. And frankly, you talked about 4 and trying to line it up. I always thought 4 was honestly probably the hardest corner on this whole lap.
It's tighter than you think it is when you're going in there. The track lies to you. It makes you think this whole thing is opening up. And if you take a look at an overhead shot of the way the course goes, it's pretty clear that it doesn't. But the feel of it, the flow, the rhythm going back and forth, you swear it's going to open up on you. And that's going to catch people out. It's caught me out when I was trying to figure out the new version of this in real life a couple of years back. And it does it here in the sim too. You just get caught kind of wanting to get on throttle a little too quick, maybe anticipating that long run down to turn 7.
Absolutely. So we're going to finish off the lap here on board with Schum just through the last couple corners, tightening up through that penultimate turn through 13 and then on 14 and on the main stretch. And he'll cross the infamous yard of bricks to finish another lap. In fact, this should be his first timed lap here in the warm-up to a 127.3. We were seeing 126s in the race itself. We'll see if they can keep that pace up, because it is the middle of the day and it looks pretty hot on the track surface, Michael.
It is quite hot on the track. We were looking at almost 40 degrees Celsius, right around 102, 103 degrees Fahrenheit. That's enough to bake some tires, especially in iRacing, the way the tire model in the sim works. It does not like those temperatures to be way up there. Real life, we've got some tricks we can do to kind of play with the pressures and the balance of the car. But when it comes to the sim world, you just kind of have to deal with what is given you. So that hot temperature going to slow things down just a little bit.
Absolutely. And we'll see who can manage that, as I'm sure they'll want to watch out for those rear tires through some of the longer stretches coming out of turn 4, coming out of turn 14. Driver is going to have to make sure not to spin those up too much. Derwin Kostanek across the line as well in that number 190 machine, and breaking down into turn 1, taking it through the series of S's to kick off the lap just inside of turn 4 of the oval itself. But as you can see, anybody in the stands gets a very good view of quite a bit of the first part of the track here, and then probably a good chunk of heading down what becomes the backstretch here on the road version. So the last of them with their laps down, trying to just get the last practice that they can before we head off into the gridding session. What are you expecting here today based on what we've seen with these drivers in the past here, Michael? Is this going to be a tricky one, or is this going to be pretty easy to adapt to?
The road course here at Indy is always tricky. I don't care how used to it you are, how comfortable you think you are with it. That wall comes up pretty quick when you're on the oval portion of it. The infield just randomly becomes slippery, and you kind of find yourself in the wrong place all of a sudden. And then you've got the aggressiveness of the drivers. We have a really good mix here of people who respect each other. These are folks who have earned their way there, or who are already pros and have earned their way there due to their status in we'll call it real life racing, like the meat space racing. And I think we're going to see some pretty interesting moves, a lot of side by side going into turns and coming out of that same turn, because nobody's going to want to give it up, and everybody here is capable of going side by side with anyone else on the track.
I'm sure there's going to be some doors banging throughout this race if they have to get aggressive to make a move stick, but we'll see how that plays in just a moment. Looks like they're switching over to the gridding of this race here. So that brings us to the last of the evening, and it'll be Chris Pies who starts on the pole. It'll be Trey Drawhorn starting from second. Remember, that is overall. The finishing position of the first race determines the start position of the second. Great job by Trey in that first race, in and amongst the pros, as he's got that PCA Pro status. Then in second position, you've got Derwin Kostanek, third position rather than Derwin Kostanek. Cameron Martineau will start from fourth, and Lee Peterson will be fifth. Arthur Chan starts from the sixth overall. Jacob Schum will start from P7. You've got Chris Braun in the eighth position, followed by Rick Reinsberg in ninth. After that, Ed Eisenring will start in 10th. On the next slide, Jordan Dyer will be on the inside of row 6 and 11th. Chris Walsh will start to his outside, and Dimitri Damakos will start from 13th. Didn't have a good first race, as he was many laps down by the end of it. I'm sure he's going to want to try and make up for that. And unfortunately, I don't see him out there. Not sure. Yeah, it doesn't look like he was able to grid up. So I wonder if he had some technical issues here. It looks like we might only have 12 of them to start out this first race. And of course, we're going to take off behind the pace car. It'll be a rolling start for these drivers before they get going. And that pace car is going to have to leave pretty early because of the nature of the pit entry here, Michael. So it's going to be a while before they can actually get going.
Yeah, it seems like the pace car has the part where it pulls off into the pits. There's that pit entrance there, and the little twisty bit and that cut in off that oval portion. But they still have to kind of roll around. I'm guessing you're going to see the formation. So right now we're looking at a single file, and this is normal. This is what you would do normally, is just go single file until you need to pack up and pair up. The call will come over the radio. Usually race control will say pack up and pair up, and then your crew chief will tell you pack up and pair up, and then it's time to come around for that look for the green flag. So I think we're going to watch a little bit. I'm surprised to see them kind of going side by side already.
Yeah, they're raring to go, obviously. They had fun in that first race, but they are ready for more. And can Chris Pies make it 2-4-2 out there? Should be a lot of fun to watch, no doubt. I wonder if any of the PCA Pro drivers can pull one over, get an overall victory. It's most of the times this season gone to the pros, which you think would be a bit surprising, but it seems like the pros certainly have enough sim experience to hold their own against the PCA pros here, Michael.
Well, there's something I've said for a long time. Just because someone is a pro doesn't mean they're better than a non-pro, an amateur driver. There are people in regular PCA or other car clubs or whatever out there who are honestly every bit as good, if not better, than some of the people in the pro ranks. Now, of course, you've got some superstars out there, and they do really well in both sim racing and in real life. Thinking of people like Max Verstappen, he's amazing in both. But when it comes to real life racing, like the meat space we were talking about before, there are so many people in amateur racing who can absolutely hold their own in the pro ranks, and this shows exactly that. I think it's really wonderful to put all these racers together and see how well they play together.
Absolutely. Well, the play is about to start because they have come out of the final corner waiting for the call from Barney the flagman to send them on the green. Pies just trickling along. Drawhorn to his outside, who had some blinking. And that's going to be a problem as the green flag comes out. Doesn't look like he's blinking right now, thankfully, so maybe it is cleared up in time for the race. Great start from Christopher Pies. Coming down to the first corner, immediately covers off the inside over Drawhorn. And way up the inside, Kosnak is going to be able to maybe get into second. No, he's just going to be able to get third. Trey seems like he was not good under braking into that first corner there, Michael.
Yeah, cold brakes trying to come in there. If you got it warmed up well on that pace lap, then great. But it looks like Trey didn't quite have enough heat in those, or was just being a little bit cautious. He knows he has a couple of opportunities here to really put the hammer down and sit in someone's draft and maybe get that pass back.
That's Reinsberg in the background, slipping off to the outside in the 72, unfortunately having issues. Meanwhile, heavy defense there for Kostanak, who got the position away from Drawhorn, but looks like Drawhorn's not able to try and lure him into a false sense of security there and is unable to pull the over-under. However, he's coming up to the front stretch pretty soon here on the lap. He could get another bite down to the first corner.
Ooh, and we've got a little bit of contact back there in the back showing the John Deere Award going to our latest landscaper back there. But here we are back in the towards the front of the field. You see how tight this track is. It really is challenging to get the car kept onto the black stuff. So easy to get out into the grass with this configuration.
That was with Reinsberg and Dyer that I think tripped over each other and got into the grass out of turn 11 there. Meanwhile, under braking, Chris Pies still well ahead of Martineau. It was close between Kosnak and Drawhorn, but it seems like he was not able to effect a pass that time into the first corner. Down through turn 4 into that very swift chicane. They got to be careful with the back end of the cars through this bumpy little back and forth.
Indeed they do. Now going across through there through turn, well, what we'll call 5-6, it's just a chicane back and forth. I personally like to run up over those curbs, but you can't always get away with that. Oh, and as we watch, is that Martineau coming around, or is that, I see somebody trying to come through back there. It looked like Martineau was able to get around Kosniak.
Double checking. Yet Martineau is in second place. Drawhorn got by Kosnak. So Trey manages to get up into third there in the 395 and managed to finally overtake down through that little S's section towards the end of the lap. Now he's got to try and run away and try and catch up to those top two. Remember, he had second place last race, started from that front row. He's going to want to try and not lose position here in the second race to help in that championship. We watch from on board the car ahead of him. Martineau down the front stretch, up against the wall. These cars do get pretty fast along here, 160 miles an hour before they finally get on the brakes. And Martineau still having to try and play the shadow to Christopher Pies, just can't get close enough for now.
Yeah, I can tell you from experience, Chris is an excellent, not just driver, but racer. And for people who don't understand the difference, there's more to racing than going fast. Yeah, Chris is fast. He is very fast, but he knows how to race. He knows how to place the car. He knows how to control the items available to him, how much fuel, how much tire, how much of him he has left to use for the end of the race. So while Cameron is right there, I don't know that I would count Chris out, because Chris, like I said, he's an amazing racer. Not that Cameron isn't, but Chris really does a good job when he gets out front.
Black flag was given to Eisenring for his contact there. He spun in the S's section, and Dyer got into him, as we mentioned, but also there was contact with Chris Walsh in that, apparently, so he took some damage. And Eisenring was the one sent to pit lane to pay for that, as we watch from on board Arthur Chan, who's got an eyeful of a battle here that is coming back onto the main straight right now.
Yeah, a lot of racing, again, if we go back to what is racing, is waiting for your opponent to make a mistake or forcing them into one. So now we've got Chan sitting here in the catbird seat, watching Peterson and Kostaniak right in front of him. He's hoping something goes on. He's a bit closer to Peterson than Peterson is to Kostaniak, but I think we're going to see some interesting racing unfold. If he's smart, he's going to hold back here for just a little bit while he's sitting right up on his tail here and try to use the driving prowess of the guy in front of him to get up there and make hopefully a double pass. That's the hope. It's kind of like the unicorn. If you find it and you get it, hold on to it, because it'll be kind of neat if that happens.
Had an off for Chris Braun in the 258. That was coming through turn 2. Didn't hit anything, I don't think, but he was definitely off into the grass on his own. As look at how tight to the back of Martineau Drawhorn is now. He caught him quite quickly. Also a bit sad, Kostaniak, who had such a great start, just couldn't hold on. Speaking of keeping a grasp on things, yeah, as soon as he got past, he was dropped and now under threat, as we saw from Peterson and Chan. So we got two distinct groups of 3 up at the top of the field forming.
Yeah, and Kostaniak's doing a good job leading that second group. He is holding onto it and actually opening up a bit. I think his issue is under braking, and that may be that he's just trying to preserve his tires. If you try to over brake and overwork those tires, you don't have them for later in the race. We have 34 minutes left to go, and while that doesn't seem like very long, when you have these race tires getting cooked by that 40 degrees Celsius, 39 degrees Celsius, 102, 104 degree Fahrenheit track, you're gonna want them to hold on to the track for a while.
Bad news for fans of Drawhorn. The stewards are watching that internet connection now. I don't think I have confirmation on a warning for it, though there seems to be discussion behind the scenes. You can see him still occasionally blinking out of existence. But let's cross our fingers that this doesn't get any worse and that he's able to continue, because this is forming into such a great battle here between these 3, and this is still for that overall win here today. So we watch from Martineau's onboard just over his shoulder as he heads back onto the short chute.
Now coming back up on this little short chute, he's just setting the car right into the draft and not over driving it. You see how he's closing up. He's got time, but I got to say, Pite's also right in front of him, not over driving. He's being very patient, and patience really is the foundation of being good at racing. Sounds backwards. I promise you it's not. Every one of my clients will tell you, wow, I never realized it, but yeah, looks like patience is the way to go fast.
So for Martineau, who also represents that PCA Pro class, is going to try and take a look down to the inside. No defense from Pies. Doesn't even break a sweat. He comes down to the apex and does not allow Cameron a chance to actually make a pass. But this is interesting. We've got 2 PCA pros versus 1 pro here. Who will prevail?
Interesting. I think it was a little bit of a double play. It looked like Martineau may be trying to get inside Peitz's head, but also trying to give a little bit of defense against Strawhorn. Smart move. See, he did it again right there. That's a really smart move from Martineau. That's exactly what you want to do. You want to get in the head of the guy in front of you, and you want to keep the guy behind you from making that unicorn I was talking about before the double pass.
It's taking these Midwest lessons here in Indiana, trying to plant that seed and see if he can get Chris Pies to just distract himself and open the door for him. He's still got quite a bit of race to do it as well. We've still got 3/4 of the way to go here today with 31 minutes left. And it sounds like the stewards, the race control is satisfied right now with Strawhorn from what we are hearing behind the scenes. So that's great news. This battle is going to continue to be a 3-way fight. Oh, just about brushing the wall. Martineau is really pushing the limit on the exit of the final corner.
He's trying to get a little bit of a run there. It's not enough to do much as he comes down here, but it is enough to get into the head. It is a head game. You have to get into the head of the guy in front of you. So I think Martineau is really trying to play the mental game here, that psychological warfare that goes on.
He's got to watch out, though. Look at how close Trey is getting to the back of him every lap as they swing through the chicane on to the back stretch. A little bit wider there for Pies, trying to scrub the tires that little bit less, preserve them all the way to the end of this race. Temperatures haven't really changed all that much, still at about a 101 Fahrenheit temperature out on the circuit. And as they come now through the S's and exit back onto the short chute, if Cameron makes another failed attempt, I got to think that Trey is going to try and stick his nose in.
Well, Martineau got a really good run off that last corner there. He was able to close up just a bit and open it up behind him to Strawhorn. Strawhorn's not going to let that go, though. Strawhorn has got the mastery of these brakes going through here, and now he is trying to start on that little mirror fill. See, he's just kind of drifting a little right, drifting a little left, trying to get into the mirrors and mess with him. He just wants to get in his head. But when they get out onto this oval again, it starts to open up just a little bit. A little bit of that is the concertina effect, but some of it is, I think, the 2 pros out front are just getting a little bit better launch.
Yeah, Martineau looked like he was mighty coming off turn 14 there onto the main straight, but under braking, Strawhorn closes them back in. He seems to have it down when you get on the binders. It's accelerating that is kind of flogging the car here. Meanwhile, as they come out of 4, heading towards the backstretch, yeah, this is where Strawhorn needs to be on top of them. He is way too far away, but Martineau just hounding that number 14 as we see behind them briefly there. The battle still rages for 4th as well, being led by Kosnak. Nothing doing for Martineau as they break into the end of the backstretch, and no change as well in that 4th, 5th, and 6th battle between Kosnak, Peterson, and Chan.
Yeah, and it looks like right here, I think Martineau may have got on throttle just a tiny bit too early there. Notice that gap opening up. Now, that's going to go away under braking right here, but it's hard to say what's going to go on at this point. Got a little bit of a wiggle right there out of our P3 Strawhorn, but you know, these guys are holding onto this front pack, and they are putting a really nice gap. It's about 4 seconds back from Strawhorn to Kostanak.
Yeah, they've been scampering away. I got to think that this is full pace for them, just pushing it, not just to try and get the lead, but also pull away from any competitors. Here's another look from Cameron, who decides that he'd rather stay in line for the time being. He pulls back behind the wheel tracks of the 14, but Strawhorn almost able to sneak his nose underneath that rear bumper. At some point, if he gets the tiniest slip up in some of these slower corners, I think Trey could have a good opportunity to make a sneak attack. We'll see if he tries that. Is he better off the chicane this time? A little better, but still not good enough.
Yeah, and there's something interesting that I'm wondering if Martineau is playing with. So in iRacing, they've really done beautiful work to make this very realistic. what could be going on is he's poking his nose out to get a little bit more cold air into those big giant radiators up front of this car to cool the car down. You can see what your temperatures are, and you will get some heat sink and lose a little bit of power. But it looks like now, as I'm taking a look this looks like Martineau is closing this up and opening up that gap on Drawhorn. Drawhorn is falling back very quickly right now.
Yes, it seems like he just can't keep up where he needs to keep up. And this is definitely one of those crucial places back onto the oval. All of them right all the way out to the concrete. There's no tire barrier there. It is just straight concrete. So if you smack the car, it's going to be bad damage. And here comes Cameron. Martineau is going to try and get in there. This time it looks like a more serious attempt, but he gets chopped off.
Yeah, he held that a little longer than I think he should have if he was going to really make it. But you know what? He's now very, very clearly into Chris Pite's head. Chris is now thinking, oh, he wants this pass. He wants to try to do this. This has been a really nice build from Martineau into that mind game of just getting little bits into his head. So now anytime Chris sees that light pop out into that mirror, he knows there is a chance.
Yeah, that's certainly going to make him probably a little more nervous. As cool of a cucumber as Chris Pies, I got to think that he can't withstand that sort of actual physical attempt at the lead. Knowing this now, I've been kind of half watching that battle for fourth, and it seems like it is slipping apart, unfortunately. There was a brief time it was about as close as this, but just hasn't been giving us enough. So this is where the action is right now out on track. As they come down through the penultimate turn, one of the slowest corners out here on the circuit, leading to one of the most critical turns, just accelerating out, and it was way wide onto the grass for Drawhorn that time. I think he actually got two wheels into the green stuff, and he looks way farther back, so I think that did affect him, as Cameron is actually getting a response from Pies. This time, he's actually going to give him a warning to keep off that inside.
Oh, yeah. So now it looks like that little mind game is starting to work. So this is good racing from Cameron. He knows exactly what he needed to do. But I also want to point out in that second pack, that Kostanak, Chan, Peterson, you might realize I just said those out of order. Chan actually got around Peterson.
And here's another attempt. He's going to go to the inside late as he fools him into going off to the outside. Martineau's got the first apex, but things switch around so quickly here. I'm not sure that this is going to be job done, and he's barely going to be able to sneak back in line before Trey is able to get in there as well. So now it seems like Cameron's patience has run out. He is trying things. He's doing various pass attempts and has been able to at least get side by side, even if he's not been able to complete the pass.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff we saw earlier was just testing, and I think he's still kind of testing the waters to see what'll happen, but you know what? He's probably tired of testing and wants to go on to the real thing. I expect we're going to see a pass here in probably 2 laps. That's if Chris doesn't pull some of his typical brilliance out of the hat on this one.
And just an update for fans of Arthur Chan, that pass was on lap 10 that he moved up into 5th place, is already chasing on Kostanak. We'll try and catch that if that battle heats up, but we got to stay here for now as the leaders move in this very close-knit Caterpillar around 2, 3, now into 4, and looking to try and get the power down once again. There's not much offline for them as well. I see a lot of dirt in some places around here where some of the practice in the first race has kicked up all kinds of gunk, so they got to watch out, make sure that they don't go too far offline.
Yeah, there's a nice bit of rubber put down on the track here from the cars racing already. And I think that's where Drawhorn is really making his car shine. He's able to use that rubber on the track to turn itself into braking. He's not getting it so well off the corners. That's where I'm watching Martineau, and I think he's just maybe half a tenth sooner, maybe less than a quarter of a tenth sooner onto the throttle than Chris Pites is. But it's just not enough. He's going to have to wait for Chris to make a mistake. He's trying to force one, But speaking of forcing a mistake, we've got Arthur Chan here. P5, not good enough for him. He wants to get back to P4. He is right up on Derwin here. This is a really good opportunity. Look how fast he's coming off that corner. He has a major opportunity here as we get down the straightaway coming up in turn one. We've got it fending him off to the inside, trying to hold that position. Now what's going to happen? He's going to make that move back out. Here comes just right down into the braking zone. Can he get around? He's got past him side by side through the corner. Just enough to get around. Looks like job done.
Whew, I got to give credit to Derwin, though, because he did not go quietly. In fact, he's still not done. He's going to try and get to the inside of turn 5. That's going to put Chan offline. Will this compromise him coming through the chicane? No, he manages it. Kostanak was defending basically all the way from turn 13 down to that first corner. And was trying, he's going to try and come back at him again, down into the backstretch left-hander, and it is not quite there. No, he's almost got it inside for the next left-hander. He holds tough, and he switches back underneath. This could be a good launch that'll give him a chance to have the inside into turn 12.
And what has this done? Exactly what you thought it would do, bring Leif Peterson back into this mess. This is getting exciting. This is now the new race. Oh, a little bit of a lockup there trying to go in, and he has lost that position, gets over into the grass. He's got a lot of work to do to catch back up there in that number 50.
Well then, that certainly went backwards for Arthur Chan in a hurry. So now Leif Peterson is the one that gets a shot at trying to overtake Kostanak. I told you, Derwin, with his good run at the start, was certainly trying to make good of whatever he could, because he doesn't seem to have the race pace here, Michael, but man, is he a fierce competitor.
Yeah, again, you don't have to be fast to win a race. You just have to be consistent. And I think that's something he has in spades. He's really doing a great job being consistent, and he's racing well. If he were just a tiny bit faster, we would see him in that front pack. Or if he hadn't slipped a tire or whatever it was that happened right near the start, because he got up there. He was in that front pack and then kind of fell back as the second, third laps came through. So I'd like to see him in the coming races probably playing up here where we are right now on board with Drawhorn.
Yeah, this is back on board with the 395, braking into turn 12. Trying to set himself up as he figured it out on these last two turns to try and get the better exit. It's a little off the apex compared to Martineau, and that's going to put Martineau in a better spot coming off of turn 14 now onto the main straight. Not close enough to Chris Pies like we have seen in some prior laps, but now we have passed the halfway mark of this race. So the opportunities are going to continue to slip away if you are the 98. And he's tried some things, but they didn't stick. So if you're that number 98 car, Michael, what do you do from here? Do you back off and wait, or do you continue to try and put on the attack every chance you get?
I'm going to take a breath. I'm going to sit back because I've already shown that I've got it. I've shown that I can get my nose in there and that I can make your life really difficult. So I would kind of sit back a little bit, take a breath, reset, let the car cool down, let the tires cool down, and then start poking again. Poke that bear. Normally they say don't poke the bear. Right now you want to poke the bear. And Chris Pites, he's quite a ferocious bear to be poking, so I'd be careful about that. But, you know, when you're looking at somebody like Martineau, I think he's perfectly capable of poking that bear and getting on around.
Because we've passed halfway, it's time to bring you the Midway Race Report presented by Porsche. And of course, up at the top of it, Christopher Pies, who started on the pole position, won that first race of the evening, but has not had it all his own way. Instead of Drawhorn being behind him, it's been Martineau in that number 98 that has been chasing and has actually made some attempts. He makes a little brush with the wall, though, unfortunately, there. He has had a few instances of that. Hasn't slowed him down enough, but he's tearing off the paint on that car. Trey Drawhorn, who started on the front row, has fallen to third since the beginning. In fact, he was as far down as fourth at the start of this race. Eventually got back into that spot hasn't been able to jump up from there. You get a big jump finally from those first three. Back to fourth with Derwin Kostnak. He's the one that managed to demote Drawhorn initially. Couldn't hold him behind, but since then, no one's been able to make it past Stick on the 190. After that, it is Leif Peterson who sits in fifth spot. He has inherited the position from Arthur Chan after Arthur did get by Derwin at least for a little while, and then suddenly made a mistake and had to hand it back over. In fact, we might have a pass here for Leif, who's got a really good run on Kostnak. Is this going to be a change for fourth position? He's going to try it around the outside. He's got to be careful. It's so easy to get shoved off here with the other driver trying to go wide. But once again, Kostnak seems like he might have this figured out. No, it looks like Peterson is through into fourth. So switch those two around. Then behind them, Arthur Chan in the sixth position. In the number 50, started this race exactly where he sits now, but could take advantage as those two battle. What's the last half of the field look like, Michael?
Arthur Chan doing a great job there, catching back up to those guys, and a little bit of trouble. Looks like Arthur's going to get back through, which is going to change and put Leif Peterson into P7. And I'm trying to figure out what the shuffle was there, who got through that we didn't cover. But I'll go. It was Chan. It was Chan. Okay, so it was Chan. So Chan is up now, and that's wow. So this is an interesting race. Let's take a look at this on the replay.
Yep, we saw that there, and that means that Chan's now fourth, Kostnak fifth, and Schum is back with you in sixth position. It looks like we've got Chris Walsh as well in P8.
So yeah, Chris Walsh here in P8 from Hardpoint Motorsports out of the Carolinas region. Another example, I feel Chris and I are kind of similar. I do really well in real life, but when it comes to the sim, I've got to feel it, and it's tough to feel on some tracks, and he may be having a little issue today, but you know, can't put it past a pro. I think he's going to really move on up here. So moving on up to P9 or what, back to P6, Jacob Schum. We skipped him before. So yeah, Jacob doing a beautiful job. Love that little mystery machine like paint job he's got on the car here. PCA Pro out of the Carolinas region, putting on a nice show for us. So looking forward to seeing a little bit more from him as we move through the race. Next, we've got, I want to say it's Jordan Dyer, started in 11th, moving up a couple of positions. PCA Pro doing a nice job here today. Expect to see more out of him. I'm used to him, if my memory serves me correctly, being a little bit farther up the field, so maybe this isn't just isn't his track. Here we have Chris Braun, started P8, back to 10th, little bit of trouble at the beginning of the race out of the Northeast region. Also one of those really good drivers we're used to seeing here in the top 10. Moving on to P11, Rick Reinsberg. He's out of the Diablo region. He started ninth, lost a couple of positions. Again, this was a little bit of that lap 1 or lap 2 incident that we saw in that infield straightaway. But then moving on, now we have Ed Eisenring. He started 10th, back a couple, also part of that little kerfuffle. He's out of the Pacific Northwest region, looking to close things up, but he's got a bit of a gap to make that, about 20 seconds or so to the next car, kind of having a Sunday drive out there on his own.
And this concludes tonight's race update, brought to you by Porsche. Whew, that was frantic for only 12 cars. As,
I couldn't follow where we were.
Yeah, they decided it was time to shuffle it right as we did that. So Derwin Kostnak, by the way, also got shuffled. He got a black flag for that contact, unfortunately, with Leif Peterson, and that has sent him back to 11th. So more changes as Chris Walsh is now in 7th then. So there are definitely some drivers that are managing to inherit a few here today. And the latter half of the race up at the front, this is what we see on screen. Pies, Martineau, and Drawhorn that have never really been more than about a second apart from one another.
Yeah, these guys are putting on a beautiful show for us and doing everything honestly textbook. This is exactly how you want to do it. You're watching Chris out front. He's trying to control the race and doing a nice job of managing the attacks coming in from behind him, knowing which ones are real, knowing which ones are tests. But I gotta give major props to Drawhorn here. He is holding on to these guys like they owe him money or something. He is not letting them get away at all.
Really isn't, and that's going to make life difficult for Pies and Martineau because they both got to withstand pressure here today. Martineau especially because he's got to attack and defend. He is the meat in the sandwich, and unfortunately not a very comfortable place to be. It's not soft bread around that loaf as he's taking it into turn 12 and 13 here, and then up to 14. As we look from the rear bumper of Christopher Pies, and doesn't look like a particularly good run this time out. Still has some laps left, but after halfway through, he was really making attacks. We haven't seen him trying to get close enough to get side by side for quite some time. So maybe he used up his stuff. Maybe he is just kind of pulling back and regrouping.
I think he may have burned up his rear tires a little bit too much trying to make those passes early on or trying to make those tests. Now he's just holding on, sitting in the draft, not too concerned because he knows he's got enough to pull away from our P3 driver, Trey Drawhorn, but he needs to be close enough to stay in the draft of Chris in front of him. And it's kind of an interesting position, but notice he's looking out again. He's gotten close. Are those rear tires cooled off now? Is he ready to make another attack on this? Right now, he has got a good chance as we're going to come back out onto the oval here in just a moment. We go around one more corner, puts the power down. Beautifully done getting that power down. Let's see how this works its way out as they come up to the braking zone for the next little dip in.
I want to give some props to Trey as well. He used to have a reputation of not having patience, but we've seen plenty of that in today's race, as that's a much wider swing into the penultimate turn for Cameron Martineau. Is this going to be what he's looking for? No, it seems that turn 14 denies him yet again, and he's not close enough, but he's trying stuff. He's trying different lines compared to that 14, going where he's not to see if he can maybe get something somewhere around here and open the door. Just hasn't really made a crack that he can step through quite yet.
Yeah, I think he's trying to get some air on that rear wing to push the rear end down just to use a little bit less tire. So he's not sliding the rear end as much, but then suddenly he gets in behind Chris and loses that air, and these cars will slide around pretty quick on you.
Yeah, you can see that around so many of these corners, the way they have to bound over these curbs and breaking down at the end of the back stretch. Seems like every time I look at that 395 in the heavy braking zones, he is just pulling right up underneath Cameron Martineau. But he needs to be a little bit closer to actually execute an overtake. They're now down to less than 10 minutes left. It's the final quarter of the race. It's been a bit of a stalemate for some time. Who can take the king?
Well, right now Drawhorn is doing a really good Daniel Ricciardo impression from Red Bull days. He is the king of the late breakers and not losing time out of it. He's just not getting off the corner as well as the other guys, and I think this may be a setup difference. He's really getting in there, and I think he needs to get close enough to make a good, strong attack.
All right, so where is he going to set up that strong attack, though? Can he find something sneaky? Can he do something clever here? Let's not forget, Drawhorn is our leader in the PCA Pro class for the second race in a row. Yes, last time he was second overall. Yes, he'd like to finish in that same spot again, but he could potentially stay put and still be in a great position championship-wise within his own class. As they come out onto the backstretch one more time. Cameron Martineau, though, is in the same class as Pies up there. He needs to try and overtake on that green and gray machine. He's been trying it. He's been doing everything he can, but at some point, he's got to get out the kitchen sink.
I can tell you from experience racing in club racing and in the sim, where you're racing with club racers, there is a certain point of pride that people like Drawhorn will have when they get around a pro driver. I've had people just cackle over the radio that they were able to get around me. I'm like, you made a good pass. I got to give it to you. So as I was saying earlier, there is talent that doesn't necessarily make it to the pro ranks, but they've got the talent to be there. And I think we're seeing that right now in Trey Drawhorn.
Yeah, and this was a great run for Martineau. Had a much wider entry coming into turn 14. That gives him the exit he needs. He starts to pull in, but he's still about a car length back. By the time they get to braking, that was deep for Christopher Pies. Now we're seeing some cracks in the armor from the 14 car. That's the first we've seen all race.
That's a little surprising. Chris is the man who is cooler than the other side of the pillow. I am not surprised that Martineau is the guy who made that happen, though, because when you've got somebody with the talent of Martineau behind you and the talent that we're seeing from Trey Drawhorn, with only 7 minutes left in this 40-minute race, it's time for those little cracks to come through.
Flying through the end of the back stretch once again. Martineau still glued to the back of Christopher Pies with just under a minute 30 for these laps. We're looking at probably about 5 to go as they cross the line. Watching from inside the helmet here of Cameron. Too far back now, down into turn 12. Relatively slow corner, just not that long of a straight. All depends on how close you are to try and get that attempt in. Try and stick your nose in down to there. So many times you see drivers try to set up for here out of turn 14. Shallower entry compared to his rival. Can he stick with it? Yes, he can. Michael, this is looking good.
This is looking really good. It looks like he took some braking lessons out of his rival behind him, Trey Drawhorn. He is right up on there. You've got Chris in a severely defensive posture right now. Where is Martineau going to try to place this car? Both of them going back and forth, trying to hold on. Allows this trio to stay together, but oh, God, it's getting tight in here.
Yeah, I could see him try to get back to the racing line. Cameron didn't think he was going to get the overlap, tried to open up the corner, and there goes Trey. He now gives a little hello to Cameron Martineau, but unfortunately it wasn't intentional. He apologizes over the radio. Both of them get away with it, but also, speaking of getting away, look at Chris ahead of them.
Yeah, Chris has pulled out about a half a second lead on them. Do not expect that lead to stay there, though. Look at that, closing right back up under braking. Like I said earlier, Martineau took some braking lessons from Drawhorn, and he's figured out how to get this Porsche Cup car slowed down really well.
They are leaving it to the latest moment now, down into these heavy braking zones at this fast circuit as they head towards turn 12 once again. They got to try and catch up to Pies, and they don't have long to do it. If they keep battling, that could be race over in the fight for the lead, and it'll be who can get best of the rest here. So as they come onto the main straight, much farther back for the 98 car this time. Trey is closer. Is this going to be a slipstream opportunity for that 395? It doesn't look like it from here.
Martineau is still about a half a second back. That's not a bad place to be, especially if you're trying to set yourself up for that move going in, and a little bit of lockup from Drawhorn trying to get in there, and actually catches a little bit of grass on the exit, which allows Martineau to close it back up on Pites. I didn't see a mistake from Pites through there. Maybe it was just Cameron having a moment of brilliance and being able to close that back up. And now we get back on board with Leif Peterson trying to close up on our P5, Jacob Schum.
Yeah, Jacob is up 2 positions from where he started. One of those inherited by the incident there that spun out Leif Peterson, and another inherited by Kosenak getting the black flag before he was able to get going. Meanwhile, Jacob trying to pull off to the right-hand side is a little too far out of reach from Leif, but he's definitely threatening.
Yeah, threatening, watching them come down here. This is a very difficult corner now. That used to be a very high speed. You would brake, go all the way down, and just sail the car through there. You have to whoa it way up now to get through that corner because of the reshaping of it.
I do like it a lot better than the old one. It gives a much better chance to try and overtake here, as this is the guy with the most, not the most positions up. I missed Chris Walsh ahead of him, who is up 5. Oh, whoa, you mentioned overshooting that corner because you didn't know the corner was there. Well, Jacob Schum has done just that. The 56 had to take to the bike course, and he falls down to 8th.
And that is not commentator's curse. It was way too far away. That was back in the intro. But look at him there, just doesn't quite get the brakes down. But fortunately, there is that bike course going through there, the moto course. You can safely stay out of the grass and bring the car back in. Now he's got a lot of work to do to catch back up, but that puts Chris Walsh up 6 positions now. Right behind him, right behind him looks like Dyer is up 4 positions. So good movement from that little pack.
Oh man, Jacob has toasted his tires because now he missed turn 1 as well. Or turn 2, really, if anything, is the one that he missed as he had to cut across the grass. He's fallen down to 8th. Walsh is now up 6 positions in that P6 spot. So as we come back to the leaders, things are really changing around back in the middle of the pack. But we are coming to start the penultimate lap for our leaders. Pies has those 0.3 of a second over Martineau, but look behind them. Trawhorn has suddenly dropped. He is almost a full second behind.
Yeah, they've definitely turned the wick up. I think Martineau is tired of playing around. He needs to make his move on Chris about now. He's not close enough to do it, but he has shown that he can close this gap, and that's got to be in Chris's head. Chris knows now that he's got some major competition behind him in the form of Cameron Martineau.
Out through turn 3 into 4. He is within about a car length here as they fly through that right-hander, try to set up for the chicane. Doesn't really slow the cars all that much. You can just whip it through there.
Oh yeah, it's full throttle for sure through that.
Yeah, and right now, he's still those 0.3 of a second behind. He's only going to get one more good shot on the front stretch as they'll have the braking into turn 1. And other than that, it'll have to be a pretty desperate move into the backstretch left-hander if he wants to try and make an overtake. What can Cameron do to wrap this up? Can he take the victory away from Chris?
Look at his setup here. He's got another really nice setup, and he's going to close this up under braking really tight. He takes a little more curbing on the inside there, or at least has the past couple of laps. Now is the point of the final setup. Here's where he needs to put the power down and be patient getting around there. Now he's got some air on the wing, and now he can go. Now he's got to make this push. This is going to be the last lap he gets a chance to do that.
I don't think he looks close enough. They lost a little bit as the white flag waves for them up at the flag stand into the braking of turn 1. He is simply not there, and poor Chris Walsh, after his hard run, has unfortunately had a problem, I think, into turn 11, it looks like. So we'll have to catch up to that a little later to see what happened to him. Good under braking for Martineau, regains the time that he lost, but it is this too little, too late. Can the 98 attack into turn 8, still hovering at about 0.3 of a second. He's trying to straight line that chicane as much as possible. Pies off to the right-hand side. I'm not seeing any sort of defense. I think he feels safe.
He feels safe. That's way too far back. That's 0.3 off. Can't make a pass from there, but just a little bit wide on that turn 8, trying to get through here. He's got to set it up now. This is his last opportunity. Chris Pites, I'm going to guess he's going to do a little bit different line than what we've seen to throw Martineau off behind him. He's got enough of a gap now because we're looking at about 0.8. So I think Martineau may have just decided, you know what, P2 is still good. I'm ready to go stand on the podium, even if it isn't the top step.
I think he used up his tires. It looked like he was missing every apex there for a while, but Christopher Pies is going to sweep it here at Indianapolis, getting both wins of the evening.
Nice job right there. Chris is an awesome driver. I love racing against him. Martineau comes in second. It looks like the first of our PCA Pro is going to be Drawhorn. So beautiful drive. Sat up there with those guys for a while and then decided to back off and let them have it. But meanwhile, let's get on board with Chris Brown here.
Yeah, Chan's going to get a nice 4th place, and Chris, unfortunately, close to Walsh. Didn't see him make enough of a mistake that he could actually overtake him. So Walsh will survive with at least 4 positions gained. However, he was one-upped by Jordan Dyer, who went up 5 to finish in 6. Chris still has plenty, I'm sure, to be happy about in this one. Braun, not so much, wound up down 1. But all 12 drivers will wind up finishing on the lead lap, and will complete all 28 of them, thankfully. So as the last of those come to the line, poor Derwin Kosnak, spare him a thought after it started so well in this race, and he was doing such a great job playing defense. It just was one mistake not only cost him as he lost spots trying to recover, but the black flag that came because of it forced him to give up pretty much everything that he had fought so hard to keep. And then as Eisenring here, going to be your last one across. That'll take us to the results here of today's race. And Chris Pies, as we mentioned, is going to take the win in that pro class, with Martineau finishing second overall and in pro class. First in the PCA Pros, Trey Drawhorn will be third overall. Second on that PCA Pro podium, Arthur Chan, with a great run here today. Rounding out that PCA Pro podium is Leif Peterson, fifth overall. Jordan Dyer was behind them in P6 overall, with Jacob Schum in seventh. After that, it is Chris Walsh who winds up the last of our three PCA, or not PCA Pros, Pro Simply drivers, finishing in the eighth position. Ninth went to Chris Braun, with 10th going to Rick Reinsberg. After that, the last two to actually start the race were Derwin Kostanak and Ed Eisenring in 11th and 12th. Tamakos did not start the race here today. I think we are going to get to talk to Christopher here in a moment, and I'm sure there's plenty to talk about, although much of it in his mirror. As Chris, congratulations on sweeping the evening, taking both wins. That second one, though, that one was not guaranteed all the way to the checkered flag, it seems.
Yeah, big credit to Cameron. My goodness, he kept me honest that entire race, but it was a lot of fun, a whole lot of fun. With Cameron being so close to me, I could not put a wheel wrong, and thankfully I was able to keep my composure and drive a clean race and do what I practiced. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm glad to bring home the win.
Yeah, mentioning of not putting a foot wrong, during our whole coverage of your battle, I think the only mistake we really caught out of you is going a little deep into turn one at one of the laps. How do you keep from making those little mistakes in a race of this length? Because that was mighty impressive that you just showed so few imperfections.
Just have to I try to treat every lap as a new lap, a new shot at driving a really good lap, and it helps keeps me focused. But I'm also watching the gap, trying to manage the car behind me. Cameron didn't give me much of a gap to manage, but he's 0.2 away. I'm basically threshold braking. If he goes back to about 0.4 or half a second back, I'm easing off and braking a little bit earlier to try to save some tire where I can. But yeah, it's just I need a shower.
Well, and you needed those points too. You closed in on Cameron as he leads that pro championship in this pro class. So one more race. Can you get ahead of him after the last one's over?
We'll see. He's a fierce competitor. I'm going to have my work cut out for me, but I wouldn't have it any other way. It's been a fun championship.
Great stuff. That was your winner, Chris Pies, here today at Indianapolis in both races. And I do believe that Michael has caught up with Cameron Martineau, who definitely gave it his best. You got to give him credit.
Indeed, you do. Cameron, wow, what a race. You were attacking, defending, making up positions. You started in fourth, ended up in second. So nice run, but you could taste first there. You were licking your lips through most of that race that you were going to get that, weren't you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I had that mistake in the first race that really put me on the back foot and everything. And I was really hoping, just to be really aggressive at the start and then just get so that, Chris wouldn't go away. And, I thought I executed that all right. But, there were a few times there where I thought, I can just get close enough. I can really send it on him. But alas, he did a good job of, making minimal mistakes and really just driving clean and keeping his eyes forward. So props to him. But yeah, it was definitely, it was there, but he was just the better driver today.
It looked to me as an observer of what was going on that you kind of changed up your style a little bit on the second half of the race. It looked like you started pushing towards that later braking and catching that last millimeter to try to get even a little bit closer and a little bit deeper. Is that what was going on? Did you change your style, or am I just seeing things that didn't happen?
No, for sure. I was getting more confident under braking behind him. Even with these cars having, minimal downforce, the aero wash behind someone is definitely there. So, as the race progressed, I was definitely getting more and more confident to stand on the brakes, and I suspect he had an aero advantage on me, i.e. he's running less wing, which is why I wasn't able to really pull alongside him down the straights. So, that sort of advantage in the setup, for me, running higher wing gave me a lot more confidence on the brakes. So, I started figuring out, I can brake a little bit deeper to him, and I was starting to realize that I really just need to be on him at the exits of these corners if I really want any chance of getting by him at the or giving myself a chance in the braking zone.
So if you had to tally it up, how many different attack positions did you set up through turn 14? It seemed like once you got that confidence in there that you tried different lines and different ways to get into Chris's head. Was that just something that happened because the car bounced over there, or were you like, I'm going to try to hold this one tight this time, or I'm going to go a little bit later on the apex this time?
I think a lot of it was, for sure, trying to get a good setup there. And I think a lot of it was me just trying to read the situation on, what Chris was doing with the car, where he was placing it, and really based on where he exited. I believe it's 13 there, but wherever he exited, and then to set up back over to the right, based on where he put the car there, I could try to make a educated guess on how he was going to get an exit, and I'd try to adjust my line properly. And I think I was just trying everything. Like, I was just trying to peak in places. There was a few times where I was trying to get alongside of him. I know he doesn't use a spotter, but just to really fill his mirrors, make him think that I'm going to go for a crazy move. There was definitely, I was throwing the book at him, but so he did a really good job defending all that.
Yeah, something that comes from a lot of experience behind the wheel, but it's really difficult when the guy you're doing it to also has a lot of experience behind the wheel. So who do you have to thank for tonight's P2?
Absolutely. And Chris is definitely a heck of a driver. He's a talented guy in WRL. And I just, tonight really just got to thank, Team Hardpoint, Delta Sport. If anyone's down at VIR, come say hi. I am actually going to be getting on a plane here in about 7 hours to go down to VIR. So come say hi. I'll be down there. Chris Walsh, Jordan Dyer, Bill Anderson, all the admins and moderators, and Doug and Aaron, all the guys that run PCA Sim Racing, you, Michael, Joe, Cameron, Ryan, DJ, all you guys that are behind the scenes that really put this on for us. So. And all my friends, my family that are supporting me from the couch right now. So thank you guys.
Look forward to seeing you in more PCA sim racing, and hopefully we get to meet up sometime in some real life racing out there in the meat space, because I've got some irons in the fire. We'll see what happens. Maybe you and I can go mirror to mirror, door to door sometime soon.
That would be amazing. That would be absolutely amazing. Yeah, let me know. I've got a few rounds I'm trying to make for SRO and IMSA. So from there, just if you're planning on going, let me know.
I will definitely do that. But now let's go talk to our third place overall and the first in PCA Pro, Trey. Sorry, I'm trying to spit your name out here. Trey Drawhorn.
Okay. We've got Trey with us up here, and Trey, I'd say it ended a lot better than it started, because let's talk about that run down to the first corner. You started on the front row, and then suddenly you found yourself down in fourth temporarily. Did you feel like you were a little too timid into there, or what happened?
Honestly, I think I just just started in the wrong gear or something, and I just got swallowed up because I was kind of nervous. I didn't want to pass Chris on the start and get a penalty. So yeah, I just kind of got swallowed up, just in the wrong gear, I guess.
Well, we can leave that behind us because the rest of the race was absolutely phenomenal. Yes, you didn't manage to pass Cameron or Chris, but you hung on to them and were a serious threat for much of the race. You got a lot of praise behind the scenes for your patience in this race. Is that something you feel like you've grown a lot in your time sim racing?
Oh, patience for sure is one of my strong suits now than when it was before. It wasn't. It was kind of non-existent. A couple of seasons ago, I built up the patience and being able to really, really wait until I can like push someone to do a mistake or, kind of capitalize. So just be ready for whatever. Yeah.
Certainly seems like you showed phenomenal patience out there today, especially having to wait the entire race essentially behind those two, looking for an opportunity. But you've got one more opportunity coming up when we head off to Road Atlanta towards the end of September. Can you make it one step higher than that second place in the first race? Can you win overall, maybe?
I think I might have pace to win. We'll just have to see. And if I get the fuel calculations right with not having, 3 gallons of extra fuel.
Yeah, that's always helpful. Well, again, congratulations. 2 podiums, the second and the third is certainly plenty to write home about this evening. So we look forward to seeing you down in Georgia.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Everything you guys do. Super excited.
That was Trey Drawhorn, not only third overall, but first in his class here this evening for the second race at Indianapolis. Before we go, of course, we want to mention our social media because PCA Sim Racing social media offers in-race reports, breaking news, and announcements through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. To subscribe, key in the platform name and add /PCA Sim Racing. We'll see you next time at Road Atlanta, September 22nd, 9:45 p.m. Eastern, live here on Podium Esports. Thank you so much to our sponsor, Porsche, and a big thank you to the steering committee at PCA Sim Racing. Also, huge thanks to our team tonight, Michael, Ryan, Cameron, and Dougie. Also, none of this is possible without those behind the scenes at Podium Esports, Ryan Bauer, Gary Sexton, and John Theodore. Thank you so much for watching today's broadcast of PCA Sim Racing, sponsored by Porsche. I'm Joe Peak, and I'll see you on the track.